This is Life Lessons Lounge, and I'm Mihaela Gabriela. Here, we explore diverse life stories and the wisdom they hold. Let's delve into the stories that shape us, teach us, and connect us all. Welcome, Mihaela. I'm so excited that you're here. And before we dive into your work, how would you describe who you are today, beyond the titles and the roles that you have?
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm very excited to be here as well. And I knew you were going to ask me that. And it's a very tough question for me to answer, right? Like, who are you if you're not your titles and where you're coming from? And I also don't want to use this platitude of I'm a spiritual being in a human body and all that. I mean, I am that as well. But yeah, I will describe myself from my titles and then let's see where it takes us, right? So I'm a Family Constellations Facilitator and an IFS, Internal Family Systems Facilitator, but I'm also an engineer and a life coach. I am a perpetual learner. I'm a very curious person. I'm a human design manifester 5-1. I think it's very important. It was such a pivotal point in my life when I found out about human design, which thank you, because you introduced me to it. I'm a spiritual nerd, if you can call me that. Ever since I was very small, I felt very connected to the other world, and I kept having experiences and synchronicities and things that were not normal for the people around me, but were very natural to me. So it's no surprise that I ended up working with spirituality and with healing and supporting people. So I come from Romania. I lived for 12 years in Denmark. I'm now in Cyprus for almost 3 years. So that's a bit about my background.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I love the multitude and the range of who you are, right? You have so many different things in you, from engineer to spiritual, like the balance of right and left. it's it's very beautiful. Well, thank you. And I know that you have had, you also mentioned your healing journey and also your spirituality, right? And I can see how that shapes the way of how you now support others, right? So when you look back, what first awakened that curiosity about your inner work and healing?
I think it was always there. I was always, you know, as a child, I was taken to church by my grandma, and there was a lot of mostly religion, but also spirituality and belief growing up. So I always had that. But of course, as with most people, what awakened it in my adult life was a huge heartbreak. So in 2019, I had the worst year to date in my life. A lot of heartbreak, a lot of grief, a lot of sadness, losing some important people in my life, and reaching a point where I felt literally that there's so much pain that I don't know how to handle it anymore.
Mm.
And again, through a series of synchronicities, a random person came into my life, introduced me to ayahuasca, and I decided that I'm going to do that journey. And have in mind that at this point in 2019, I hadn't done any therapy, any coaching, and my background was just reading self-help books and watching, videos on YouTube and podcasts and the like, but hadn't actually done any therapy myself. So I go from 0 to 100 straight into an ayahuasca journey. And basically, and you know me from before, and there's a few people in my life still who know me from before, and that was a turning point in my life. I died and was born again, literally.
Mm.
So after having had that experience, I that's what opened the gates towards spirituality. That's when I started doing therapy. I started doing family constellations for the first time, Reiki, breath work. So in 2020, actually, when most people had their worst year because of COVID and everything, I had the best time of my life. So yeah, it started with a heartbreak that led me into, for some reason, an ayahuasca journey. And after that, yeah, I actually had visions of myself during the journey, filming myself being on Instagram, talking to people, talking about spirituality. And then immediately after that, in 2021, I became a certified coach. So yeah, I would say that was the major turning point for me.
Yeah, I want to stop maybe a little bit at the ayahuasca because what I've heard a lot from other people, it's also this the integration part. It's actually quite difficult somehow because I haven't experienced it myself, but I know that, also from you in terms of what you experience that it's out of this world, but then when you come back to real life, then it's kind of, yeah, difficult. So that part of the integration, how did you do that? How did you succeed in that?
I don't know if I succeeded on that because I was actually reflecting on this morning that when I came back from ayahuasca for about a month, I was floating. I was not grounded in reality at all or in the physical reality. So for me, it continued to work for a long time. And still now, 5 years later, sometimes when I play the playlist that played during my journey, I still get to very close states that I got during my ayahuasca journey. So a plant healer told me that once you have ayahuasca in your system, it stays with you for the rest of your life. And that's definitely my experience. I don't know if I did integration right. What I can tell you is that when I went into my ayahuasca journey, I went with a lot of humility, humbleness. And I knew for a fact that I'm going there to meet God, whoever, whatever God is. So I followed the ritual. So the center that I did the ayahuasca journey at, they said, okay, you have to fast for about 3 days before to prepare your body. I fasted for 30 days. So I kept
Yes, I remember.
mostly because I was afraid I was going to die. Like this was like I'm not gonna have coffee now because I'm doing ayahuasca in 20 days and probably I'll die. So let's not risk it. So I held a dieta for 30 days. I had a lot of reverence for the plant, for the journey, for what it meant for shamans in South America, right? And how they, yeah, performed this journey and what it meant for them. So because I did that, also everything that followed after the journey, which were mostly higher states of being and a lot of joy and happiness and all that, but there was also a lot of sadness that started to unravel, right? Like it opened some things inside of me. I started looking at my life in a different way, so more sadness came as well. But I just took it as it came. I allowed it, I stayed with it, I processed it, and I always had trust that this is what I'm supposed to go through. Because what I've experienced in my journey was a level of love that I have never felt before that has stayed with me to this day. A feeling of being held, of being protected, of being taken care of that I've never experienced in my physical life. I've experienced during the journey, and then that feeling kind of stayed with me. So I had an amazing integration. Like I said, 2020 was one of the best years of my life. Yeah. But I'm not sure my journey and my experience is the norm or normal
Mhm.
because in my journey, I was never scared. I was not shown. Yeah, it was a very easy journey. I didn't have what you see in testimonials or documentaries where people have to face their demons. There was no demons for me. It was a very gentle journey. I didn't even throw up because I kindly asked ayahuasca not to throw up because I hated it. So that just didn't. I had the sensation, but it never physically happened. So yeah.
Well, what do you think? What do you owe that to? Because is that the I don't know the fasting or the clear intentions? Because I know you're very determined around it.
mm, I thought about it a lot actually. Why it was like that for me. I think in general, your spirit guides, your angels, whatever you connect with, they communicate to you in the way you understand them best. And one thing for me growing up was I faced a lot of injustice in the way I used to be punished for things. When in reality, as a person, if you gently tell me something, I won't do it again, right? So if you gently and kindly explain to me, okay, you have to do this way because the way you did it was wrong, instead of shouting or being violent or whatever, then I won't do it again, right? So I felt that in a way, ayahuasca, Madre ayahuasca, which actually for me was a teenager. I know a lot of people experience it as a mother or a grandmother. For me, it was a teenager for some reason. She explained things to me very kindly. She showed me some images. She opened some doors for me. But holding me, being by my side, I'm here with you. It's okay. You can look at this. It's not going to destroy you if you face this fear or whatever. So I think it was because of that, because she knew that I didn't have to be shaken that badly in order to
Mm.
understand these things. Maybe I actually don't know.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? It's also like seeing where you are and what you can handle and how you understand best. So it's a lot of love,
Yeah,
it sounds.
for sure.
Yeah. I still haven't had the calling to do it.
And I'm happy you say that, because it's very important to have the calling. I would never
Yeah.
recommend anyone do ayahuasca out of curiosity or anything else other than a calling. So for me, how it happened is I meet this person randomly. He starts speaking about ayahuasca, and then I feel this immense pull. I'm like, I'm gonna do this,
Mm.
right? And this happens in end of October, and then for the next 2 weeks to a month, everything I do is research ayahuasca, look at all of the documentaries, all of the testimonials, at the most frightening stories, to see, do I still want to do this? And I constantly ask myself, do I still want to do this? Am I prepared to die? Right? Because I think there was a documentary saying that somebody died from it. I'm like, am I prepared to die? And the answer kept being yes, 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 yes. So unless you have the calling, don't do it. But if you do, yeah, for me, it has been the most, to this date, the most profound, the most important, and the most beautiful experience I've had.
Oh, that's touching. I mean, I can feel
Mm.
that. That's beautiful. And was that where you actually also discovered a little bit the family constellations?
You know, how it happened was that in one of my journeys with ayahuasca, I was shown that I am too alone and that I need more community. So what happened,
Mm.
I think, almost immediately after that is that I met you and a group of really close friends, a group of women that I connected with very closely. And
Right.
one
Well.
of these women introduced me to Family Constellations. So I
Mm.
didn't know about it before, but because I think, like I said before, ayahuasca opened these doors. Then after that, I started again meeting people who introduced me to different modalities that I started trying out, like family constellations and Reiki and breathwork and the like. So I started in 2020 attending family constellations workshops. I never thought I would be a facilitator back then. So that was never on my radar, mostly because being an engineer, working in corporate, working in male dominated areas, I was always ashamed of my spirituality. I always thought I was way too woo. And if I even started talking about my experiences or my beliefs or my spirituality with people at work or colleagues, they would
Mm.
judge me. For a long time, I didn't even do that with my friends, right? I always censored how much I talked about my spiritual experiences. Though I felt very much connected with this work, it never occurred to me to be a facilitator. So I went down the coaching path because that was starting to be more accepted. That was, especially during COVID, it was something that was needed. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a
Mm.
coach. But I never had much success as a coach, right? Because I think I was not allowing myself, I was working with a coaching methodology that was a lot about the mind and a lot about our thoughts and mind management, which is very useful for many things, but it was not fully aligned because although I have a very strong mind, my spirituality was always first for me and was always stronger. So because I didn't allow my spirituality to come into my coaching, that didn't work out very well for me. And the way I ended up being a facilitator is again a woo experience, a synchronicity. I was actually watching some stories on Instagram of a person that was very successful with family constellations, like a facilitator, that I actually knew and had worked with. And I got very triggered. I'm like, why can she do it? Why can she have success and I can't? She was very popular. And I realized, because I know this, right? Whenever somebody triggers us, especially if it's something like jealousy, it's like you have to look inside. What is it that she has that I also want? So I sat down. At this point, I was doing a lot of parts work. So I sat down to connect with the part of me that felt jealousy. And I did that with chairs, right? You step into one chair and you become a part of yourself, and then you sit in another chair and you're a different part of yourself. And as I was doing that for myself, I realized that it had turned into a constellation, that in front of me and to my side there were members of my family, I realized that a lot of my inability to have the success I wanted came from a deep rooted belief that I was not good enough because I was brought up being told that I'm good for nothing. And that is very deep
Mm.
seated still within me to some extent. I had that constellation. I gave that back to the person who kind of put this belief into me. It was a very powerful, energetic experience. It was the first time that my parts work practice turned into a constellation. And in IFS, at the end of the session, you basically unburden and give back to the elements, the natural elements like water, earth, air, fire, whatever beliefs or negative emotions you're carrying, and then you download from source positive
Mm.
qualities like love or confidence or whatever. And as I was doing that process, what came to me like a download was you have to be a family constellations facilitator. And I was like, what?
Powerful.
What? It was not even like, yes, I was attending constellations. I never stopped since 2020, but it was never something that crossed my mind. But then I ended that session. I stood up and I'm like, yes, I am going to be a family constellations facilitator. And I booked a session the next day to, yeah, like a connection, a connect call. And I signed up and yeah, that was that. Now I'm a
Mm.
family constellations facilitator.
Thank you for sharing that, because that was also a question for anyone who's new to family constellations, right? Like, what is it? But you took us through that lived experience, which is beautiful. Anything you want to add around what is family constellations for anyone who's new?
It's very difficult for me to express in words, so I'm gonna do my best.
Mm.
Family constellations basically works with transgenerational trauma. So
Mm.
we don't only inherit our genes, our hair color and eyes color from our ancestors, we also inherit their unprocessed trauma. And we also hold unconscious loyalties to them.
Mm.
So, for example, if my grandma was extremely poor, which she was, there is a high chance that I might be holding hidden loyalty towards her that doesn't allow me to have financial abundance in this life because I loved my grandma so much and because I saw her suffering and I heard stories from her childhood where she experienced famine.
Mm.
There's a part of me who wants to experience some of the same suffering so that she doesn't feel alone, right? Or I don't know if my parents divorced or I don't know, my mom divorced several times, then I might,
Mm.
and it's not a rule, right? But I might have a fear of getting married because that can result in divorce and a lot of suffering. If, and I think for most of us, our great grandparents went to war. And of course, that's a
Mm.
horrible experience for a human to go through. There's a lot of trauma that was never processed, right? That can lead
Mm.
to even physical ailments, right? You can have a chronic, I have endometriosis, right? Chronic disease, doctors don't really know what to do with. There's no way to treat it medically other than treating the symptoms, right? And then what we see in constellations is that a lot of it has to do with unborn children in my lineage,
Mm.
right? So it's basically what family constellation is that it opens a healing field that nobody knows how it works. We just know that it works. Where in that field, whatever burden or loyalty or yeah, whatever we might be carrying from our ancestors comes to light. And then through what we call healing sentences in the healing field, we give them back. And then we restore order in our family system, right? Because if you think about life as, coming from source towards us, if you think of it as a river, it kind of flows through our ancestors, right? Like this until it
Mm.
reaches us. So if you look at it as a hierarchy, then our ancestors are bigger and we are the smallest, right? And life flows like this. When we hold burdens for them, right? Like coming back to the example of me holding loyalty towards my grandma, then not only do I turn away from my life, I'm looking backwards, facing my grandma and thinking I'm bigger than her because I'm trying to carry something that is actually hers.
Mm. Oh, that makes so much sense. Yeah.
That stops the flow of life. Like life is not flowing through me. It's like I'm acting as a wall, like an
Mm.
obstacle. So life is not flowing through me. So then I do not get to experience who I really am. I do not get to live my life as my soul intended to, because I'm caught up in all these loyalties. So what I'm actually doing is reliving their patterns. And this is
Mm.
something like after 5 years of intense constellations work, only this year it hit me really how much of my life so far has not been my life, has literally been repeating patterns from different people in my lineage. Also because I'm the first one in my lineage that is looking at this, so I feel like it's
Mm.
all coming to me, right? Because there's an outlet, there's the possibility to heal it. So it's like from different directions, so many things come up from me in
Yeah.
constellations. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you have huge responsibility on your shoulders now.
Mm, yeah, I don't know if it's because that could also be a burden, right? Like you see clients
Oh, yeah,
sometimes
that's true.
where
That's
it's
true.
like, oh, because I can, now I have to heal my whole lineage. And it's not about that.
Mm.
And I'm really happy you said it, because some constellators focus on the system, right? Because like because you open a constellation, you try, some constellators, some facilitators try to make everyone in the family system feel good or better or release them or whatever. And then the way I'm trying to work, and the way I think it's the correct way to work, is that you focus on the client, right? So
Mm.
if a client comes and says this and this happened in the war, or this and this happened in the family system, I need to know that. But I'm always focusing, okay, so what do you want? I want to have a better business.
Mm.
I want to have a better relationship. I want to get better physically. I'm having troubles in my marriage, so I want to. So we focus on whatever is present for the client in the present moment, and the constellation will show us if that is related to something in the lineage, but it's not our responsibility to heal them, so to speak. They will, like, we often see that when we work with whatever the problem or the issue the client has brought, that brings a lot of release towards the ancestors, dead or alive. But it's not our responsibility, so to speak. I think the only responsibility we have is to really truly make the most out of our own life.
Mm. Yeah, that was actually what I wanted to ask, because it is around the ancestors. Like, how do you honor them?
Mm,
Because there is this, we were doing the burdening, as you said, the carrying on of these patterns, and that's in a way the unconscious way of honoring,
yes.
right? So now, when we don't have that, how do we honor?
Lovely. I'm so happy you asked that. It's such a spot on. That's exactly, I think, the core of family constellation, right? Because
Yeah.
we think we honor them by carrying their burdens and repeating their patterns and their suffering. And in reality, we don't. And I'm going to tell a very personal story here, because I think it will illustrate that the best.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
I was just sitting here in my living room one day. I think I was meditating or something. And out of the blue, on the couch in front of me, my grandma comes and sits down. My grandma has passed almost
Mm.
20 years ago, okay? But I still have a very strong connection with her, and she's very much present in my life and has been always. And then she sits down on the couch, very calm, very casual, like, "Hi, I'm here." And I'm like, "Oh, wow, okay. Hello, nice to see you." And then she actually makes me kneel down on the ground, on the floor. And she says, "In front of you, imagine that there is the whole lineage of women from myself and beyond. I want you to look at them, and I want you to swear to me that you will do the best that you can, to the most of your abilities, to have a better life than we did."
So touching.
So it was not like, oh, it would be nice to, it was such you know, a firm request. It's like there has been so much suffering in the
Mm.
women in our lineage. There was, they didn't have opportunities, they didn't have freedoms, they were poor, they
Mm.
went through so much. And here I am having the opportunity to get an education, to have a good financial life, to have independence, to do with my life what I want. And she made me swear that I will do whatever I can to take advantage of that. And that is
Mm.
how we honor them. we always, 100% of the time, we see in constellations that our ancestors are happy when we give them back their burdens. They're always happy if we are happy. They bless us.
Mm.
They, we are in a way their dream. Everything that they wanted and couldn't have, we have the opportunity to
Mm.
have, and this way their suffering is not in vain.
Yeah. 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 Whew,
Yeah.
thank you. That's so touching. But it's so powerful as well, right? And then the immense love, right, that comes through
Yes, and
in
support.
that, yeah, it's beautiful, beautiful. And that's also what I've experienced when I've done family constellations with you and also with some other. It's like really you feel the love, and you also so much understand other people, like why they behaved like they behaved the way they did at that time,
Yes,
right? So it's, I think that understanding releases a lot of things.
absolutely. It shows hidden dynamics,
Yeah.
right? So we see in constellations at a soul level, which sometimes is a bit different than what we experience in our physical day to day life and the relationship we have with certain people. At a soul level, a family is bound together by love and only love. And also, when there is pain or suffering involved, it's still out of love. We carry their burdens out
Mm.
of love. Some people are perpetrators, so to speak, also out of love to some of their ancestors who might have gone through tremendous trauma, like, see, wars, right? Like, unprocessed war trauma can cause people 1 or 2 generations down the road commit atrocious things,
Mm.
but that's also out of
Mhm.
loyalty to those ancestors, and that's also loyalty is out of love. So yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
love in our ancestry, and when we can access that and feel their support, life is so much easier.
True. And that also what I wanted to ask, right, around what would you wish people understood more around healing, like, and also the lineage part, but you mentioned a little bit around that now.
Yes, so the most important thing that I would like people to understand about healing is that we don't operate in a vacuum, and that there's so
Mm.
much we can do at an individual level. So when it comes to coaching or individual therapy, parts work that I do, internal family systems and all that, very important, because there's also a lot of trauma that comes from our own lived experience, from our own childhood and the life we've had so far, that also needs to be processed, and we also need to look at that. But there's also a lot of it that comes from our ancestors, and that is
Mm.
deeply unconscious. I will say another a brief example from one of my constellations that completely blew my mind. I am a bit of a daddy's little girl and have always been daddy's little princess, and my father loves me very
Me
much,
too.
and I've always felt that he's like his love for me was the one thing that I never doubted in this life, hands down. So here
Me
I am
too. Yeah.
doing a constellation about my entrepreneurial success or lack thereof. And what shows in the constellation is me in my mother's belly, feeling that there's something wrong with me because my father wanted a boy.
Mm.
And I knew that. Like, I knew the story of how my father wanted a boy and he was disappointed because who's going to carry the name forward and all that. But when I heard this story, I was just laughing and thought it was hilarious because I knew how much he loved me. So I never felt like he never treated me like, oh, I wish you were a boy or anything like that. Right. And now he even says it. I'm thank God you're not a boy, you know? So I never felt that consciously. Never in a million years would I have thought that because my father wanted me to be a boy, that will cause me any issue because I just thought, okay, that's a joke. But what happens is that as babies in our mother's wombs, we absorb and we are somewhat conscious of what's going on around. So I came into this world thinking that there's something wrong with me because I should have been a boy. And here I am, a girl.
Mm.
And then my whole life operating from masculine energy and wondering why my life is not going for me, you know. So that's something that really illustrated for me, if I needed more proof, how unconscious the some beliefs are, and how much they run our lives and prevent us from
Mm.
having the success we want, whatever we define as success, I wouldn't have had access to that through any other therapy, really. Because had anyone asked me, I would say, okay, that's not a problem at all, ever. But it turns out it was. So,
Yeah. Yes, as you mentioned as well, like healing is systemic,
yes,
right?
exactly. We're part of a
So,
system, right? It's yes,
yeah.
we have our part, and we need to look at our own individual life, but we also need to look around at the family we come from, the lineage, the country we come from. Very
Oh, yeah.
important. Yeah.
And because I've heard you once saying, like, yeah, you choose the country in a way,
Yeah.
right? And it has stayed with me. I'm like, why did I choose Albania? Why did I choose Denmark?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Great. And what do you think, when people just start with healing and maybe they just get that awareness or a big pain, usually that's the biggest motivator, right? That you need to change something. And so where should they start? And I know it's very personal, what draws, but what would you advise people to start with?
Mhm. With their biggest pain, whatever that is. I would maybe say, if it's
Mm,
possible, don't let it destroy you. Like, don't let it
mm,
be that you reach the deepest depths of depression before you start doing something about it.
mm,
Although it's kind of what happens for most of us. It kind of happened for me like
yeah.
that. But whatever your pain is, that's your journey of healing, right? So for me, it has always been my profession, like the most painful
Mm,
thing. And that's, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I've always craved freedom and independence, but somehow my life brought me through the traditional path of going to school, becoming an engineer, and getting a corporate job. So that for me was very painful. And every time I tried to be an entrepreneur, I never succeeded. So that brought up a lot of I'm not good enough, of unsafety, of fear, and all of that. So that has been my healing journey. Every time a negative emotion or experience would come, then I would pause and look at it. Like, what is the
mm,
message here? What do I need to heal? What do I need to look at? What is this fear or sadness trying to communicate to me? So always follow. There's no, I wouldn't say, yeah, I don't think there is other ways actually. Just look at where you have the biggest pain or the biggest dissatisfaction, or where your life is least as you would like it, and start from there and look at what's preventing you from doing it. What are the emotions associated with it? Is it fear, shame, lack of confidence, lack of self-worth? And start looking into that.
mm, mm. And yeah, and family constellations definitely would help with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned a little bit how you work. How do you actually work with people everywhere in the world?
Yeah. So because this is energy work, then you can do
Mm,
it online, you can do it in person. The work works the same. So it works regardless. It's just a different experience for the client. So how it's most commonly known, family constellations happens in physical group workshops,
mm,
where you have people sitting in a circle on chairs, and then the client comes and talks about their issue and what they would like to work with. And then within the boundaries of the circle, that's where the healing field is. And then we ask the client to choose different people from the circle to represent different family members or issues, right? You can bring your mother, your father, and your business, for example, or your
mm,
mother and father and your shade, or whatever the issue is. And then as
mm,
these people step into the circle, they stand up and step into the circle, they start to experience the feelings and beliefs of the people they represent. So people might start crying, people might feel dizzy and they want to sit down, people might feel rejection or want to take distance, things like this. So as we work with the representatives, we start to understand what the hidden dynamics are, and also the what needs to be done in order to restore the balance in the system, right? If we need to
mm.
give some loyalty back or some burdens or take our own place, like I talked before, right? Like we are smaller than our ancestors, we should not be bigger,
Yeah.
and things like this. So that's how it works in person. And I also do it online with wooden figurines. So it's the same
Mm,
concept, but I am with the client one on one on Zoom, and then instead of choosing people, they choose figurines to represent. I go into the energy of each of the representatives. and tell about how they feel and what they think. So I step
Mm.
back and forth between being the representative and the facilitator.
Is it easy to shake off that energy
Mhm.
from one representative to
It
another?
is for me. So
Yeah.
some people don't like to work online at all. Some facilitators don't do that at all. It just came to me like when I was still in school. Of course, I was facilitating sessions for my friends. I knew that some people did it with figurines, so I was like, okay, let me try it out. I tried it. It is very easy for me. It doesn't really stay with me. I can move back and forth between a
Mm.
representative. It is for me, and I'm very mindful of that, and I question myself after each session, because if at any point it turns out that it becomes heavy on me and my system, then of course I will stop. It hasn't happened so far. It's yeah, I
Mm.
don't carry that, and I also forget about constellations most of the time. So
I think that's healthy, no?
I think that's how it's meant to work actually. You
Yeah.
know, it's like
Yeah.
it goes through you. When I facilitate, I don't do anything. I just allow things to come through
Mm.
me, and then I forget. Like I remember in one of the workshops, there was a person, they had their constellation, and in the break, she was like, "Oh, my father called me." I'm like, did you work with your father in the constellation? She was like, "Yeah, duh." I'm like, I don't remember. Like I really don't remember. It's gone. Um,
Yeah, I remember as well because I've been representatives for some. Before doing that, there is a little bit of anxiousness. Oh, will I actually channel?
mm,
Like, or will I be able to do that? But in a way, it just, I don't know what happens. It's just, it gets so easy, right? And then you say things you don't know what you're saying. Basically, you're so much in that energy. And then it's just like shaking off. And then I love how you guide as well. Like you're very good at really saying what needs to be done at each moment, after and before, of course. So yeah, I was very surprised at that.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And again, we don't know why it is like that and why it works like that, but it is. So you shouldn't be, because a lot sometimes imagine that we have to represent war in a constellation, or a
Yeah.
victim, right? And people are afraid of, oh my God, how am I going to choose somebody to represent war? Or, oh my God, how can I represent war? It's really something that comes through you. And once the constellation is done, you shake it off. And if by any
Mm.
chance something stays with you, it's because it has touched something that was already within you. So it can
Mm.
happen that after you represent someone, you are still left with some sadness, for instance, or some anger or whatever.
Oh,
That's
that's
because
true.
it was in you, right? And like you said, we have methods to shake it off, and there is things we can do to make sure that you have fully exited the representative, or it has exited you, their energy. And yes, there is no danger, so to speak, that
Mm.
it will stay with you or that you cannot get out of it. It's normally very easy to get out of it once the
Mm.
constellation is done.
Very nice. So I want to know now a little bit, like you as a facilitator, right? And how do you prepare yourself to be in this grounded place? Because what I find sometimes difficult, I don't do healing work, with coaching, but sometimes I'm also very aware of not to put any of my, things into it. So how do you make sure that it's not maybe your energy mixed with the
Hmm.
others?
Very good question. Well, you cannot 100% guarantee that. It can happen. All 90% of my clients come with issues that I've had and that I've worked with, or things that show up in constellations are things that are also part of my lineage. I don't know why, but it is like that. They are kind of a mirror. I haven't actually had issue. Like it can be that for a split second, your mind goes to, oh, this is also in my family, but it's like, and now I'm the facilitator. I'm back here. So it's
True,
not
true.
really. I haven't had challenges with it, thank God. The way I prepare is I have my rituals the night before. I'm always alone. I go to sleep early. I try to meditate, put myself into the right state. I ask for help from my own, ancestors and my angels and God. I ask for support because I know that this work comes through me. So basically, what I ask is like, let me be the best facilitator that I can be in the channel, right? Like, allow me to serve best, to your point, so that my own emotions or thoughts or experience doesn't come through or doesn't affect the constellation in any way. I've had one constellation where the night before I was crying myself to sleep until 1 a.m. Like it was a very difficult period emotionally for me, and I was actually concerned because I'm like, okay, how am I going to facilitate this constellation since I'm in so much pain myself? And then the next morning, I woke up like a butterfly. Eh,
Oh, how nice.
yeah, I was like, I can't like the energy has shifted completely. I was in a good mood. I was energized, even though I had very little sleep, and it was one of the best workshops I've ever facilitated. So yeah, I think that's mostly because I get supported through this work. It's not
Mm.
me. It's the support. Like, okay, I ask for support to hold the space for the people, and then I'm supported in that, and it works.
That's lovely. And how about the recovery after workshops of after sessions?
Sessions they normally energize me because it's like 1 hour, 1 hour and a half. So after that, I'm normally very energized. I can go for a walk, I can go dancing. It's great. Workshops are because they're full day, like 10 to 6 normally. They're very heavy on my physical body. So I'm exhausted. I need to be alone. That's very important. I'm also an introvert. So for me, it's very important to have time alone before and after. So I normally can't stand being around other people. I have to go home and sleep or watch Netflix sometimes. That's what's needed, but just be alone and have a lot of physical rest. And normally, because I hold them in the weekends, then the next day I try to go to the sea or to the mountains to kind of recharge. And if there's something that I feel like I need to give back, then I can give back to the elements, right? To the water or the wind or earth. Yeah.
Mm, I love that. Yeah. I'm learning a lot from this. Thank you. And is there any questions that I haven't asked you in this that you would love to have it in?
Mm, Maybe one thing I would mention about family constellations is that there is no requirement as such to join a session. Like you don't need to have done years of therapy before or coaching, or it's enough to come with an open heart. But also it's required to come with an open heart, and by that I mean that this is not something you will understand with your mind. That's why sometimes it's difficult for me
Mm,
to explain in words what happens in the healing field, because unless you experience it, there's no words that can describe it. It's a very
mm,
powerful, extremely deep healing and extremely efficient, right? But you need to be open to it, right? So I'd invite people that if they decide to join such a session, to come with an open heart and kind of let their mind rest for a little bit, because logically I cannot explain why, right? I have a strong mind
mm.
myself, and I'm obsessed by the question why, how does this work? I need to understand. You,
It's,
there's no way for the mind to understand what's happening there. So
yeah. And also, I think to add to that, it's also a clear intention
yes,
i- in terms of what do you want to work with,
absolutely,
right?
yes.
And yeah, good. So I have a fun question, I think. If our ancestors are listening to this
Oh,
episode, what do you think they will feel?
proud.
Yes.
Both of us, because I know you and I know your journey and your work. I think they would be very proud, and it touches me a lot.
Yes. True.
Um, Proud and happy, right? Um, I think we are much closer to living to our highest potential than they ever were,
True.
and I think that makes them really happy. And also, it brings some relief to them. That's the thing. It's a, I don't feel like they want that out of us. It's not like we're supporting you so that you can also heal us and our souls. It's not like that at all. But they do feel it. So it's
Mm.
like a very nice communion that we have with them, and there's a lot of love.
Yeah. True. And yes, very much supported, right? I feel that. Yeah. Oh, Michaela, this has been so lovely and so insightful and so soulful. So thank you so much. And wishing you all the very best and ease and flow and grace in your journey and lots of success and abundance
Thank you so much.
for everything your heart desires.
Thank you. It's been amazing. I was a bit nervous before this, but it was amazing. And thank you for holding this space and making me feel safe. So And all the best wishes.
Thank you for being with us in the Life Lessons Lounge. Remember, every story has its wisdom. Join us next time for more insights and inspiration. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep sharing your own story.